Hey, welcome back. So in the last tutorial, we got our blueprint made for our player, and we put our player in the world and are able to possess our player, but we cannot move. In this tutorial, we're going to start making it so our player will move. We're going to at least be able to move forward and backwards and look around. We may also be able to add stop and jump in this tutorial, but I don't want the tutorial to get too long. I'm going to try to keep it right around 20 to 30 minutes in length. So if we can get all that done, we'll get it all done in this tutorial. If not, we'll break it up into tutorials so that it doesn't get too long. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is where we left off. We have our player in our world, and we have our blueprint open. So if you close out your project, go ahead and open your project back up. Remember, there's a couple different ways to get there, right? So we can get there from your folder by double-clicking on this, and you can also get there from your Epics game folder and finding your project in there and opening it from there. All right. Then we're going to want to go ahead and open up the blueprint. So again, go into your content folder, blueprints, player, and then double-click on the player to open up the blueprints. All right. So we have that open, but before we can actually start doing anything here in the event graph, we need to set up our player inputs, okay? So let's go back to our content folder, go up to the content level, and here we're going to right-click, create a new folder, and we're going to call this inputs. Okay, and I'm going to right-click on this. I am going to set this color, new color, probably make it something like purple. All right, now I'm going to go in that folder, and I am going to first, make a folder, and we're going to call this new folder Actions, okay? And then I'm going to double-click on Actions folder, and this is where we're going to create our input actions. So if you open that folder up and right-click, go down to Input, we want this one right here called Input Action, okay? So we're going to call it IA for Input Action, underscore, we're going to call this one Move, okay? So with IA move, we're going to double click on it, open it up, okay? And I'm going to grab that tab and park it up here so I can see it. I'm going to hit save so I don't lose it in case something happens. All right, so looking at it, we have, basically this is just a bunch of words and information here. And we're only going to change a couple of the settings in this to be able to get us to start moving. And in this one, actually, it's just the one. We're going to come over here to value type. We're going to change it from a digital bool, which is a boolean for true or false. We're not going to use that for move, but we are going to use an axis 2D vector, okay? So we're going to add that in, and that is all we're going to change on this one. We're going to hit save, okay? We're going to go back to the content drawer. Now I'm going to right-click. I'm going to go to Input. I'm going to get another input action. I'm going to call it IA underscore. And I'm just going to call this look. Sometimes it's look around. Sometimes it's called mouse look. Whatever you want to name it. But I'm just going to call it look. It's short and easy to the point. I'm going to save it also. And this one is also going to be changed to axis 2D. Okay, so we're just going to be moving it along to the vector 2D. So along two axes. All right. Hit save on that. We're going to go back and we're going to, again, right-click in here. We're going to go to Input, another input action. I'm going to say IA underscore, and we're going to call this one Stop so that we can stop our character. Again, we're going to open this up. This one's going to have a little bit more going on with it. This one will leave as a digital bool, so it'll be a true or false, okay? And for triggers, we're actually going to add in two arrays. So right here under triggers, hit plus and plus, okay? So the first one, where it says none, we're going to click down and we're going to say pressed, okay? And then on the second one, we're going to click down and we're going to select released, okay? So we have our two indexes. If we hit the down arrow here and the down arrow here, we just want to double check to make sure that the default setting for these is 0.5, okay? And Let me make sure that should be all we need for this. And go ahead and hit save. Okay. And then we're going to add in one more for right now. We're going to go ahead and get another input action, IA underscore jump. Okay. Then I'm going to double click on that one, open it up. And for jump, it's also going to be a digital bool. We're going to add 2 triggers for it. Just like last time, we're going to have a pressed and we're going to have a released. We want to make sure that these are both also set with the default of 0.5. And that is all that we're going to do. So I'm going to do a file, save all. So far we've got 4 input actions. And we'll talk about what the difference is between the 2D axis and the digital bool once we get into the blueprint itself and we can see the example, okay? All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up 1 level in our content drawer. So we're going to go up to inputs, okay? And we're going to right click and we're going to go back to inputs. And now we need an IMC or an input mapping context. This is going to take all of those input actions that we just created and make something happen because we're going to refer to it in our player blueprint, okay? So we're going to select that. And we're going to call this an IMC underscore. And I'm going to give it the name for what this one is for our rollerball, okay? Now, sometimes you'll see it called default, and there might be actually several IMCs in a game for different purposes for the player, okay? There might be a mouse look specifically one, a mouse look one, or a different controller one. All those type of things might actually exist. All right, I'm going to do a file, save all, just save that. I'm going to double click on it and open it. And in this is where we're going to start adding in all of our stuff, okay? To make things happen. So, I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus button right here. All right, so for this, we're going to call this IA jump. Let's start with them alphabetical order for right now, okay? Once we do that, then we can add another one in. But let's go ahead and get the jump all set up, okay? So for the IA jump, if I hit the down arrow, we see that there's nothing assigned to it right here, but we have a keyboard next to it. For my setup, I was using the space bar to do the jump. You can use the shift or whatever it is that however you want to set your path up. So if I hit the little keyboard and then I hit the key that I want, so in this case the space bar, it's going to set the space bar up to do the jump, okay? And if I hit the down arrow next to that, you'll see that there's some triggers and some other things that are set up on that. There is actually nothing we need to change on any of these, okay? It's already got everything all set up for us. Okay, so press and release. It pulled this in from our input action. So it's already got our triggers for this button set up into it, right? Okay, now what if we wanted to use a game controller, right? So a gamepad or something like that. So we can click here and add plus next to IA jump. If we add that, it gives us another choice, okay? So in this case, I'm going to hit the down arrow. I'm going to pick a gamepad and I'm going to use the gamepad face button. So if you think about the way a controller is set up, right? You think about a controller, right? It's going to, we're going to set it up based off of the positions of the different controllers. This is an Xbox controller, so generically they're just going to refer to the different buttons in the positions that they're in, right? So we have the face button bottom and the left and top and right and things like that. So just think about how your controller is set up when we're talking about these, okay? Let's go ahead and get that set up. So we're going to go here. We're going to find a gamepad. We're going to do the face button bottom. Okay, I'm going to use the bottom button, the A button to jump. Maybe that's the right one, maybe not. But you can set it up however you wish, right? So I'm picking the face button bottom. And again, if we take a look at it, the trigger is already set up for press or release, okay? So, cool. That is our first one. The next one, we're going to go back up here to mappings. I'm going to close these for jump. I'm going to hit the plus button, okay? And then for this one, the next one in line is the look. So I'm going to select look. For that one, we're going to be using our mouse, right? And so I'm going to hit the down arrow here, and I'm going to use my mouse, and we're going to do the XY 2D axis. Remember, we set this up as a 2D axis, so we're going to use the XY axis for this, okay? And then, so under modifiers, we're going to hit the plus button for modifiers, and then instead of none, we're going to click the none button, and we want to use negate, okay? So basically, it's going to be the negative setup for that. And if I hit the down arrow, we're going to see that right now it has all of the X, Y, and Z's. Which one do we want to negate, right? So we're going to negate the Y axis. So we're going to uncheck the X and the Z so that when we move our mouse up, it looks up, and when we pull it down, it uses the negative, and we look down, okay? And then, of course, we're going to inherit settings from action. Now, we also want to set up a gamepad for this one, maybe, right? So this one is going to be set up. So let's go ahead and hit the plus button here. Okay. We're going to use a gamepad, and it's going to be the right thumbstick. Gamepad, right thumbstick. We want to use the 2D axis for the right thumbstick. Okay. And also, we're going to set a modifier up for this one. So we're going to hit the little plus button next to the modifier. And then for that one, we're going to want to set this up as a dead zone. Okay, so the dead zone, I hit the down arrow here. We're going to use the default settings for the dead zone here under smooth radial. This is the type of smoothing that we're going to use. And what a dead zone is basically it smooths out the axes around the center point of your thumbstick, so that over time there starts to be wear and actual wear on your thumbstick. So it helps to smooth out the movement, so that as you move it around, your character movement will stay smooth instead of being jumpy. Okay, and these numbers can be adjusted based to your liking, but typically the default will work just fine. Okay, so now we've got the look done. Let's go ahead and add in move, I think is the next one, right? So if I hit the down arrow, move, okay? So for move, we're going to hit the down arrow here. And so on move, it's going to be the W and the S key, because we're not going to use the A and the D key for move. So let's go ahead and, I lost it, there it is, hit the down arrow. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to hit the W key for the move up and down, right? We're also going to use the plus key, hit the keyboard. We're going to use the S for the opposite direction. So we got W and S, and then we'll get the up and down on the gamepad here in a second. Oh, actually, you know what? We're also going to use, now I think about it, on the keyboard, we may want to use the arrows, right? So if I hit the plus 2 more times, okay? So on the keyboard, I'm going to hit the up key, and then on the keyboard for this one, I'm going to hit the down key. Okay, so now we got W, S, and up and down. Okay, so let's get these set up. For the modifiers for the move on their W, right? I'm going to hit the plus button right here on modifier, and we're going to use a swizzle. So a swizzle allows you to change the order of the input type, okay? And that's what a swizzle input axis does for us. So we're going to select that, and then I'm going to hit the down arrow right here. And we're going to use Y, X, and Z, okay? We're going to swap X and Y axes, okay? And that's what we're going to do using the swizzle, okay? Now then, we're going to do a similar thing for the S key, except this is the down key, right? So we're going to click, we're actually going to need 2 modifiers for this, because we're going to need to make the swizzle input, but we're also going to have to negate it, okay? So for this one, again, swizzle, okay? And the swizzle for this one is going to be the Y, X, and Z again. So double check to make sure that that's what's selected here, the Y, X, and Z. And then for this, we're going to negate it. So for the next one, we're going to say negate so that it's the opposite, negative direction. And this one is actually, this axis, we're going to leave all 3 of them, okay? So all 3 of those. All right, so now let's do the up and down keyboard, right? So the up should behave just like the W key, right? because this is going to be on our keyboard. So the modifier for this is just going to be swizzle. And just double check to make sure it's Y, X, and Z. It is. Okay. And then the down one, again, 2 modifiers. We're going to need swizzle. We're going to need negate. And I'm just going to double check my notes real quick. Make sure I'm not steering us in the wrong direction here, because I believe it should be the same. Yeah, it is. And then negate is also going to be all 3 X, Y, and Z. All right. So we got those. We're going to need to also add in our gamepad left thumbstick. So let's hit the plus button next to move. Okay. I'm going to hit this. Find the gamepad. We're going to use the left thumbstick 2D axis. So left thumbstick 2D axis right there. 2 modifiers. Okay. The first one is going to be dead zone again. So we're going to use the dead zone, and it should be set to default. Okay. And smooth radial. And then we're also going to use right here scalar, right? So we're going to use the scalar, and this will allow us to set the scale for each of the axes. Okay. And right now, they're all set to 1. We're going to change the X one, which is the first one, to 0. We're going to leave the Y at 1, and we're going to change this one to 0. Okay. And that should be it. We're going to leave it smooth radial, scalar, 0, 1, 0. Okay, that should be it for the gamepad. Okay, so we've got one more to go, and that's stop. I'm going to need to be able to stop. So let's close some of these up a little bit, because there's a lot going on here. So let's close the look, because there's a lot happening there. And now we're going to go ahead and add in one more mapping. Okay. And this mapping is going to be our last one, which is the stop one. And to stop on my game, I have it set up to use the tab key, because it's right across from the W key. So I'm going to use the tab for that one. And the setup for that one is basically by default. So it's just is or isn't. So it's a Boolean. Okay. And then we're also going to set up the... Did I set up a gamepad? I did set up a gamepad. Okay, so we're going to set up the gamepad for this one. And I was thinking through what would be the best for this one. So we're going to hit the plus button here. And we're going to go to gamepad. And I was thinking, you know, that right's going to be acceleration. Left is going to be stop. So I'm going to go ahead and, let's see here, gamepad left trigger. And it should be left trigger digital. So left trigger digital. So it's going to be this one right here, left trigger digital. And of course, it also draws in from the way we set it up for press and release for these 2 elements here. All right, so let's save all this. So the boost button, later on when we set up the boost button will be the right trigger button on the gamepad. So we'll cross that when we get that far, all right? I'm going to close that down just a little bit. Okay, so we got all of our stuff. Let's go ahead and go to File, Save All. Let's go back into the blueprint for the player. What we're going to need to do first is set it up to actually call our IMC Rollerball. Right now, it doesn't know that this is its instruction on how to move. And then inside of that, this has the instructions on each of these input actions, right? So we need to tell it that it's going to look for this for its instructions on how to move. So we're going to right click. If I can get there, there we go. And we're going to do a receive. So event receive controller changed, okay? So if you just type in receive, this one should come up near the top. So in our blueprints, this little window will pop up. So when we right click and type in the search here, all these different options will come in. If you notice, there's a checkbox right here that says context sensitive. We're going to leave that on most of the time because Unreal Engine is trying to guess what it is we want to do, and it's going to give us some of the most common things for what we're typing in. If you uncheck it, there'll be a lot more things provided in here, and there'll be a lot more things you have to look through. Most of the time, what you're looking for is based on the context of what it thinks you're trying to do. So again, let's pick this first one, event received controller changed, okay? And now we're going to do a cast, right? So we're going to right click, and casting allows one blueprint to call information from another blueprint. And the blueprint that we're going to want to call from, in this case, is our player controller. So we're going to cast to player controller, okay? So cast to player controller. And this gives us this little blue node. We have an input on the left and an output on the right. This red one that we have is an event. See, it's red, and it only has an output. We have the old controller and we have the new controller as options for outputs on it. Over here, we're going to do is we're going to plug this into the input and the object. So we have to tell it what object it is that we're referring to. In this case, it's the new controller, okay? So we're going to cast to this and we're going to tell it we're going to make a change, right? We want you to go from what you thought was the controller to what we're actually using. Now we actually have to do that. So we're going to right click and we're going to add mapping. Okay, this is one of those cases where if we unclick context sensitive, we could probably find what we want, but I'm going to try to do it a different way so that it makes a little bit more sense too. So what we need to do is we need to tell it that we're going to pull from the enhanced input local player subsystem, right? So if we draw off from this, and that's kind of a lot to remember, but if we type in enhanced, so down here, we click on that, we're going to get the enhanced input local player subsystem. This is what we're looking for right here. And again, I pulled off from here, typed in enhanced, and it was the bottom one right here that came up, okay? So now with that, if I pull off of this and type in add mapping context, now it understands what we're trying to do. So the context sensitive is going to bring it up, okay? Before, if I just right clicked in here and typed in add mapping context, it didn't really know what I was trying to get it to do. If I uncheck this, it would most likely show up, right? There it is right there. But sometimes if things don't show up, it's because we're not pulling off from a blueprint output, from a node output that it makes sense to do. And so we're going to connect this output into this input right here. And now we have this little tab right here. Okay, this mapping context. It says, okay, we're changing it. What are we changing it to? So that's where this is going to come in right here. If we hit the down arrow, our only one that we've made so far is this one right here, IMC Rollerball. If we had picked the template, for example, there might have been one called IMC Default, and that would have been for the template. There might have been some for whatever else you've pulled in. But right now we only have this one, so we're just going to select that one. That's the one we want, okay? So now basically what we've done is we've set up our input controls. If I highlight, so if I left click and drag, I can select everything. You hit C on your keyboard to get comments. So C, the letter C. And the comment we're going to do is we're going to call this set up input controls. Okay. These comments allow someone to come along later to see what it is that you've done. And you can click on it. Once it's inside the comment, you can just click on it and drag it and move it all around. Just like that. We can also change the color of these comments. So if I wanted to make, for example, my input's green, I can do that and say okay. And now my input for this is green. Okay, so far we're moving along pretty good. Let's compile and save. And let's make our first blueprint where our character is actually going to move. Okay. Now, in regular characters, they already have a movement subsystem put into it over here. So for a character, there would have been something called a movement under here that allows us to provide some information over here in the details, tell it how fast we want to run and jump and all those type of things that go with a regular animated character for movement. Because we're making our own character, we don't have that. So we're going to have to come up with a way to get our character to move. So first, let's go ahead and call in our IA underscore move, right? So this is our enhanced action event, and this is the move, and it should be read like this, okay? Now, when we look at it, we have triggered, and we have this action value. There's also this down arrow that has a bunch of other things that are in here that we're not going to use for this one. Okay, so I'm going to hit the arrow back up. If I hover over the little blue pin right here, I can right-click on it. Maybe if my mouse cooperates. All right, so right-click on it, and we're going to split this struct pin. When we split it, it breaks it down into its sub-elements. And see, we have X and Y. Now remember, our character is only going to move along the Y. We only set up the W and the S. So we want our character to move along the Y axis, okay? All right, so this is where things start to get a little interesting, okay? Because we're going to have to figure out how to get our player to move. Our player is round, right? So it's a sphere. In order to get it to move, we're going to have to add torque to it. So we're going to give it amount of torque and cause it to rotate around its axis by applying force at a vector from the outside sphere surface. So we're going to along that axis, and we're going to cause it to rotate, okay, along the y-axis here. So there's actually a function that's already preset in Unreal Engine called add torque in radians. We want to do it in radians. And so when we take a look at it and we do that, it also pulls out our player. So instead of having to drag our player out from here to get player, right, it already automatically said, oh, you're going to do this to your player. Yes, we are. Okay, we're going to go ahead and connect that up right there. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to make a couple of variables. Okay, this is going to be our first variable and our second variable that we're going to make. So our first variable, we come down over here on the left-hand side under the components and my blueprints variables. We're going to hit this plus button right there, and we're going to call this one acceleration multiplier. Sure, I could have come up with something shorter, but hey, let's practice typing. And we're going to change it from a Boolean, so a Boolean true, false, to something else. And in this case, we have a lot of other things, and we're going to change it to a float. We could also get away with changing it to an integer because we're only going to apply no decimals to this, but the float will work fine. We don't need to worry about that. And I am going to open this eye up. So if we want to know what that is, over here it says instance editable. So that means we can edit it inside of our player blueprint, okay, when it's inside the real world. So when it's outside in the sandbox, we can see it and actually edit it. So I'm going to click on that, and that will open that eye up. The same thing will happen if I just click on the eye right here. See that check mark shows up, goes away, right? Okay. The other thing we're going to need is we need to compile it because we need to add a value to it. So I'm going to compile it right there. And now you see we have this acceleration multiplier variable numerical amount there. So I'm going to type in 40. You can play around with this number later to get something if you want it to accelerate faster. But we're going to accelerate it from here, and this will be our starting point. Okay. And now I'm going to pull this out. We're going to come back and make another one here shortly, but when you pull it out, we get two choices. We can either get it or we can set it. In this case, we're going to get what that number is because we've already set it at 40. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw out from here. I'm going to multiply our input, so our action value y. I'm going to multiply, and here's the multiply. And I'm going to multiply it times this acceleration multiplier there. Cool, so we got the first thing so far. Now remember I told you we're going to name this player camera because we want to make sure we know what it is we're working with. I'm going to drag that out, and again, we're going to get player camera. So we got it right here. And in order to figure out which way we're looking so we know which direction to apply the torque, we're going to take this information, we're going to multiply it times this, we're going to multiply it times this and add it back into the vector for this torque. So how are we going to do that? Let me grab this. I'm going to grab it, drag it down here, give me some room to work. Pull the camera back here. So our camera will be looking in different vectors, and we can tell what the vectors are from that center point and get the information about the forward vector, and we also want the right vector to that. So first we're going to get the forward vector, and we're also going to get, pull out from here, we're going to get the right vector. And we're doing this so that we can negate one of these and use the other for the vector that we want to use to apply the torque in that direction. So right here, we need to tell it which direction the torque of the axis of rotation and magnitude of strength for the torque is right here. So this is it right here. So it's in the X and Y and Z. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the forward vector and we're going to zero this out. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to multiply this vector. We're going to multiply it times 0. So all of these will be 0. Now we're going to take this one and we're going to drag out from here and we're going to multiply this one as well. And we're going to multiply it against this float. Now it'll do the conversion automatically for us, right? So when I hover over it, did you see that little... Oh, it's already changed it. But when I hover over it, see how it gives me that little pink and blue? It's going to promote the vector to a float, right? So it's going to do that for us automatically. So it's kind of cool. The newer version of Unreal Engine does that for us. All right, so now we have that. And what we want to do is we're going to add this, since we negated the ones we're not using, the forward vector out from here. We're going to want to add it to our right vector because we want these numbers both in this. And in order to get this to work correctly, we need to add them together. And so I pulled out from the bottom one. It doesn't really matter. Since we're just adding, we could just put these across here. But if you ever do that and you need to have something on the top that should have been on the bottom, or vice versa, if you hold the control button and hover over the little node there, you get that little fist. Left click and drag, and you can drop it then where you want. So you can change it. And then we can just do that. And this is going to be the amount that we put in for torque. Let's compile and save. Now, we're not done with this, but let's test it to see if anything happens. Okay, so I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to hit the play button. And now, if I left click in there and I push the W button, nothing happens yet. Oh, wow, I got all kinds of errors. What is going on? All right, so with these errors, we can take a look. And it says right here, simulate physics enabled if you like to add torque. Simulate physics. All right, and we want to add torque, so we're adding torque to it, but clearly there's something wrong with our player blueprint. It says right here, BP player.playersphere has to have simulate physics. All right, so let's move that out of the way for a second and go back in here. And let's take a look. So here's our player. We click on our player because it says, again, right here, player, sphere. So there's our player, there's the sphere. So we have to have this thing called simulate physics. Okay, so right down here under physics, we have simulate physics. Okay, if true, this body will use simulation. If false, it'll be fixed. So kinematic, it won't move. So I don't want to say it won't move, but typically with what we're trying to do, it won't. So we're going to go ahead and put a little checkbox there, and we're going to go ahead and compile and save. So this message log popped up, right? Another place to find information like that is down here in the control and the output log. And then we would have to scroll all the way to the bottom. And there will probably be some place in there where it'll tell us what's happening, all right? Because this actually contains all of everything that's happening in that window when we're hitting the simulate button to play the game, okay? All right, so we did that. I'm going to hit clear. I'm going to close that out. We're going to go back to sandbox. I'm going to hit play, click in the window, and now still not moving. I hit escape. Oh, but this time I didn't get any errors either. Okay, so it should have played, but again, like I said in the little words in this, occasionally I make mistakes. I get ahead of myself. Sometimes I get excited. So if we go back in here to the BP player blueprint, one of the things we forgot to do is that we got to tell it how to apply the torque. And in this case, it's going to be under accelerate change. If true, torque is taken as a change in angular acceleration instead of physical torque. So let's go ahead and click that, compile it, and save. And now let's see here. Let's hit play. Hopefully it works this time. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. What's happening? No. All right. So I left that one intentionally, just so you know. But what I wanted to show you here was because of the way the camera is set up on our player, it's going to kind of freak out on us like that. So when we go back to the spring arm here, we want to make sure that our spring arm isn't set to rotate locally, but instead, so we're going to want it to be set to relative, or to world rather, not to relative. So not on our character, we want our character to be able to roll and then have our camera not roll when the character rolls. So now, if we go back and I hit play, I click on here, now we should be right behind the ball. And if we hit W, we go forward. S, we go back. Right now, we have no way to stop, and we have no way to look around. But there we go. We were moving. Yay! Okay, so we got moving. We're moving forward. We're moving backwards. We got the camera fixed. We found a couple little mistakes that I made when I was showing you it, but they're learning lessons, which is awesome. But this is done. So we're going to go ahead and stop this tutorial now because it's already gone over 30 minutes. I wanted to keep it right around 30 minutes. And we'll pick up in the next one where we will go ahead and add stop and look. We should be able to add the rest of the input actions because the big piece of it was getting those set up and getting our IMC controller set up. We've done those. The next thing should go pretty quickly as we start to put the blueprints together. All right, so let's go ahead and stop. If you liked the video, please like it. If you had some issues, please leave your questions or issues in the remarks section down below in the comments. And again, like my video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel so you can keep up. I'll check you out next time.